Hello world, it's the comic booking nerd herder here, and welcome to the first episode of the comic book writing room, where we will be discussing how we write comics. Now first, this will be how I script comic books, specifically one I'm working on called Skate Mutts, which is a comic book that is inspired by the Rocket Power cartoon and real life skaters like Tony Hawk, Rodney Mullen, Andy Anderson, and Ellie Steamer, and so much and so on. There will be skateboarding, surfing, and just also as a slice of life sports manga inspired comic. Leave a like and sub before we get into it, but this is the first page. Notice that the first panel 1 is showing that it's a panel, then P2, P3, P4. That's how I distinguish which is a panel and which is not. And above hand centered is page 1. The document title is the comic working on, so that helps it out. But anyways, you can add visual effect type art descriptions. Like in the first panel, there's a fisheye camera perspective. I'm leaving the onomatopoeias, which is the OM underneath with a tab to distinguish that there's a text for a special effect happening. And you can have the text bubble come in, show background details, like how I have panel 4 very blank in the script, and then number 5 you have a whole paragraph, and then background things like the birdhouse poster. Now, if you don't know, comic book art is also called sequential art, which is art that shows a sequence or an order of events. And with a 9-panel page, it is a perfect representation of that term. Because you can also use the light force 7, 8, and 9, the last 3 panels. When Panina, the surfer, is riding on a wave, you can have a whole wave crashing, and then have the surfer on the left panel breaking out of the tube of the wave, having the sea foam of the wave crashing into the bend or the swell, and then the wave hitting into it, showing that time is passing, so forth and so on. And with the 5th panel, with the sun comes to a dawn, it shows that it is early in the morning, and it's also a good transfer shot between characters. And unlike the scripting for comic book dealers, where I am going to be the general penciler for it, I am adding more description to background images and descriptions to certain things, like the previous panel and the one on this page, which reveals another main character in the background. Now, taking a second to explain the 3 main characters were skaters. Ollie Ollie is the street skater heavily influenced by Nigel Houston. John is the freestyle jack of all trader influenced by Rodney Mullen and Andy Anderson. And Panina is the vert skater influenced by Ellie Steamer and Tony Hawk. This comic is a nod to my love of sports manga, skateboarding, even though I was trash at it when I tried. But anyways, and on top of the sibling banner on this page also has a perfect example of forced perspective being able to add depth to a room, or specifically the skate shop, with the sleeping character Greg acting as the focal point, adding the 3D depth to the room, along with the use of the walls to add dimensions. With the last 2 panels as well, it shows that the differences with the 2, like how Ollie and the future character Hannah will be in the same class because they're older than Panina and John, who are also in the same class when the panels show them going through school. Plus, it shows that John is a recurring or more than just a plain background character, and introduces Hannah, who is in the next page walking with Ollie and Panina back to the skate shop, which she works at with the backgrounds, blah blah blah. But anyways, they have a good repurposing thing, changing up minor things to show movement and passage of time and interactions, and with a callback to the SpongeBob style cue card from earlier with a pun with some pushes later, since they were going to go get their skateboard stuff. And the next 2 pages will also be transferring over to the skate park, which will be more of a joke on how they got there. But before I move on to the skate park, I like to mention or shout out that in panel 4 we showed that Hannah is going to be the graphic designer for the skate team. However, pushing on to the next page, we have a double feature, or should I say, a double page spread featuring the likes of the skate park. But yeah, I don't know if the skate park is going to be based off of a real one, or if we're just going to customize and make up our own for the local skate park. However, there will be panel inserts that will show like vert skaters, street skaters, and then Panina and Ollie and John entering the skate park around the same time together, but not together. So, this is how I script my videos. Next video on Comic Book Writing Room, I will probably be pulling out some informations and clip bits for like 5 things to learn while reading Scott McCloud's How to Write Comics, blah blah blah. But yeah, thank you for sticking around, and hopefully you enjoyed my first form of animation. You know, I always felt like I could have a floating talking head, because I was a fan of the talking heads and whatnot. And animation's also heavily tied to sequential art, since it is also showing art in a form through a sequence. But yeah, I'm a floating head. Yeah. Wait, where's my body? Uh-oh.